Hey, Happy New Year. 2024, it's the first day of 2024, and we're going to be talking about some pretty geeky stuff. This honestly might be one of the geekiest that we've done, and it has to do with the Pythagoras calendar. So I'm going to jump right in. Thanks for being on, and if you're part of the replay crew, let us know where you're coming from. 2024, it's pretty cool. First day of a new year is always really exciting, and gets you thinking about the upcoming year and calendars, time, space, and all of that stuff. And we're definitely going to be jumping into some wormholes here when it comes to time and space. And just speaking of the new year, so I just in the locals community posted behind the scenes number 3. So that is live now, and it is walking through the process of the composition and writing process for the lessons, specifically lesson 17, which is about chord inversions. And I'm excited about that. And part 5 as a whole, when that drops, it's slated to be this spring. Honestly, it could be on its own. Part 5 is as much content as like the lessons leading up to it in terms of diagrams, details, all of that. So I'm excited for part 5. I'm working on lesson 18 now, which has to do with modes. But lesson 17 behind the scenes videos up. So definitely check that out. So Pythagoras calendar, what is that all about? I'd never heard of a Pythagoras calendar. So what am I even talking about here? Well, let's look. So this one's fun. All right. So the 12 months of the year currently are, now I say currently because Julius Caesar and Augustus Caesar kind of shoehorned in immortal self-references with the months of July and August. So when I say currently, there could be a new emperor in town who makes it 13 months. But as of right now, we have 12 months, and they are in order: January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. Probably didn't have to go through those because you have them down by now. But it's always fun, people see, certain patterns in here, like Jason. If your name's Jason, how cool is that? Your name shows up in the 12 months of the year. And that's nice. There are some other patterns that show up as well. Some actually really cool connections with music. But what does that even mean? Because when you look at the 12 months of the year, just looking at the letters and the names, there's nothing necessarily musical about this. There are different ways that we can look at the 12 months of the year. And one of them is a poem that I've heard different versions of it, but one version that I've heard goes like this. You have, and the underlines here match what is said in this poem. So I don't have it memorized. So I have it written though, and it says 30 days have September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31 except February, which has 28 days and sometimes 29 each leap year. So it starts out as a nice rhyming poem. 30 days have September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31 except February, which has 28 days and sometimes 29 each leap year. That always makes me smile because it's like, that's the worst poem ever. But it does kind of help you remember the different months of the year. And there's like a song, there's another like song, kind of like the alphabet song, where you can, memorize this pattern. But this pattern, if we look a little more closely, starts to reveal some cool things. And let's see what those cool things are. Actually, before we do that though, let's look at the knuckles. There's also a knuckles mnemonic that helps in the memorization of these months. So if the knuckles are the months with 31 days and the gaps are the months with less than 31 days, we have a pattern of January has 31 days, February has 28 days, so that's a gap between the knuckles, and then March, April, May has 31 days, so it's a knuckle. And then June is a gap. And then July is a knuckle. And then the next knuckle, if we continue over to the next hand, is August. And then September's gap, 30 days. October is a knuckle, 31 days. November has 30 days, so it's a gap. And then December is a knuckle. And so the cool thing is we have these knuckles, and the knuckles happen to follow the months. It's pretty cool that the different numbers of months match the knuckles. There's like this human time connection. Likely coincidental, but pretty cool nonetheless. Then if we look at an even cooler way to picture this pattern is let's give each month its own box. So we have, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and so on. If we just fill in the different boxes in different ways, let's give each month with 31 days a white square. And if it has less than 31 days, let's give it a black square. So January is 31 days. February is 28 days, sometimes 29. Either way, it's less than 31, so we'll fill that in. Then March is 31 days. April is 30 days, less than 30. We'll fill that in. May is 31 days, so we'll make that white. July is 31 days. June is 30 days, so we're going to fill that in. And then July is 31 days. August is 31 days. September is 30 days, so we'll fill that in. October is 31 days. November is 30 days. And December is 31 days. And if you look at it, that's kind of cool. Like, this is even cooler than the knuckles, I think, is that there is this pattern that looks an awful lot like, and not only an awful lot like, is in fact the piano keyboard, the black and white topography of the piano keyboard, where we have F, G flat, G, A flat, A, B flat, B, C, D flat, D, E flat, and E. Like, whoa. So not only does the calendar, the months of the calendar, the time throughout the year in terms of its division of months match the knuckles. That's way cool. But it matches music. This is an actual musical pattern that shows up every year, every calendar year. And so that's pretty cool. Actually, when I was noodling around, I don't know why I was geeking out about this one day, but I was like, oh yeah, there's kind of that 30, 31 or less than 31 days. And the fact that it's a piano keyboard is pretty cool. But let's look even closer at what this might mean. Now, who would be stoked about this is Pythagoras. So Pythagoras, back in the day, ancient Greek philosopher, not really an astronomer. He's more of a mystic, but he also is the father of music notation in that he devised the chromatic scale that we use in Western music, those 12 notes, C through B, and the different intervals between them. So Pythagoras would have been especially stoked because, like I say, he was kind of a mystic in that he, had some theories like the what's it called, the music of the spheres, which was an idea about harmonious relationships between celestial bodies, and the Earth being a celestial body and on a rotation around the sun of 365 days is kind of like 360 days, and that there are 360 degrees in a circle, in an ellipse. Now, that's not mathematically exactly the case, but Pythagoras, I think, would be stoked. And even in ancient Greece, there was the feeling of being stoked, even though that wasn't a phrase they used. And so I think he would have been excited about that. The fact that his brainchild, the chromatic scale, shows up in time. And it does kind of sound like the music of the spheres as far as celestial movements go. So if we look at the chromatic scale, now, like I said, we're totally geeking out here. This is kind of some tinfoil hat kind of stuff. But it is fun, especially when we're entering the new year and thinking about the months of the year. So chromatic scale is, if we wrap that topography of black and white into a circular formation, we have the chromatic scale, which is a cycle of, here's F, those 3 black keys, and then over to C, those 2 black keys, and it's just this endless cycle. It's a circle. Now, the cool thing about music theory is that the chromatic scale isn't the only game in town. It is one of the fundamental patterns. I often call it the mother of all note patterns because it's essential. All note patterns like scales and modes and chords and progressions arise from the chromatic scale. It is the underlying pattern upon which we build all other patterns. But the chromatic scale itself is informed by special relationships between notes in another formation, which is just a rearrangement of that pattern, which is the circle of fifths. So if we take every other note in the chromatic scale and rotate it by that subset of notes by 180 degrees, we get the circle of fifths, which is basically the chromatic scale on steroids in that it highlights the harmonic relationships between all notes in music, all 12 notes. Now, let's look at this side by side. So we have the chromatic scale. So this is the chromatic scale circle, and we have the circle of fifths. So if we take, for example, these 2 notes that are tritones or polar opposites, and these 2 notes, and also these 2 notes, and we rotate that subset of 6 notes 180 degrees, we get the circle of fifths, which is, if we're just focusing on the letter names and also the shapes of the months, we get from the chromatic scale, which is the familiar topography of black and white, a pattern of 3 black keys and also 2 black keys, and then the white keys in between. If we rotate that into the circle of fifths, it's this really cool, recognizable relationship between all of the white keys that form their own subgroup and all of the black keys that are adjacent as well. So the black and white keys in the circle of fifths look like this. Now, we're just talking music, right? Because that is how music works. You have this relationship between the circle of fifths, the chromatic scale, these 2 fundamental patterns that are really just rearrangements of one another. Now, if we were to loop in the time factor, the months of July, August. So here we have we have January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December in chronological order. The chromatic scale in its natural sequence forms that pattern. If we do this rearrangement where suddenly we have this scrambled pattern of January, August, March, October, May, December, we have this like scrambled pattern of time, this strange sequence of months. And it works in music. This strange rotation between the chromatic scale and the circle of fifths works in music within the pitch of pitch space. And music is the audible convergence of space and time in the sense that it is space or pitch and time rhythm. So what about this rotation of months? Is there like a way to is this like some hint into time travel or moving through some kind of wormhole? I don't know. And I am saying that tongue in cheek because I'm not going so far as to say that is the case, but it is pretty cool that you have this cool connection between the month, the calendar, the 12 months of the year, and the chromatic scale, which in turn rotates into the circle of fifths. And if that works for music, whoa, what if it could work for time? And I would cue the whoa, 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 like the the Twilight Zone theme music. That would be pretty awesome. But looking at these months in a circle of fifths format, and here I applied the 12 keys of music, the color wheel. It makes it more recognizable. Yes, in the circle of fifths, you do have all of the white keys that are adjacent, but that's not very revealing. White is related to white, black is related to black. These keys, the black and white is related. These keys, black and white is related. That's the thing about the topography of the black and white layout of the keyboard, piano keyboard, is that it's visualizing music, but in a very pale way. It doesn't really illuminate the harmonic relationships in the same way that the color wheel does, since the color wheel and the circle of fifths are more than analogous. They're just visual and audible representations of the same thing. So if we look at this music pattern, the circle of fifths, with the color wheel, it is easier to see that, oh, there are special relationships. There's a natural flow from, say, C to G, from G to B, or G to D, that is D to A, and so on. Just like, that would be interesting if there was a special relationship between these months. I don't know what that relationship is, and honestly, I haven't spent more time on it than that, because I got other things to do, like creating part 5 of the course, which I'm working feverishly on. Literally feverishly. I had a fever this last few days, but just kept pushing through because it's got to get out. So kind of cool though. It's interesting, and it does make you scratch your head and think, that would be kind of cool if there was a connection. I mean, honestly, that's how color music came about. Is I was like, that would be so cool if you could access a higher dimension, like by being able to see sound. How crazy would that be? And it did sound crazy. And for a long time, people did think I was crazy. And we might be crazy here, even just talking about wormholes in time and the calendar, but it is fun. And of course, once you rotate the circle of fifths back into the chromatic scale, or in this case, the scrambled calendar back into the regular 12-month sequence, there are all of these cool connections between the notes, geometric connections that are symmetrical and consistent across all 12 keys. And if we were to apply this to time, what are those connections between months? Again, I'm going out on a limb here because I haven't fleshed this out, but it is awesome. The fact that the 12 months do highlight the same relationships in music. So that is super geeky and arguably a little off the rocker, but fun nonetheless. So that is what I wanted to talk about. And it was just kind of a little more than the gee whiz file, because if anyone explores that, and if you do end up traveling to distant parts of the universe or galaxy through some kind of wormhole, let me know how it turns out. Let me just jump into something here. Okay, so this one was shorter because it is it's just fun. Dave Mercer, yeah, I did maybe have a sleepless night that led to something like this. But hey, you got to admit, it's pretty cool that the calendar, I mean, it's way better than counting knuckles. Like you have knuckles, you have poems that don't even rhyme, or you have the piano keyboard. That's actually a really easy way to remember the months, the count of days in the months, because I mean, it's music. How cool is that? So, yeah, I just saw Virtuous Heretics comment that no drugs were involved. That is true. There were none, but maybe some sleepless nights and some obsession about musical patterns. So 2024 is going to be awesome. I am excited about it. I'm super excited to be geeking out with you. And next week is going to be some legitimate music patterns. But hey, when you're thinking about the calendar, thinking about the year ahead of you, just like the calendar itself, it's going to be filled with music. There's going to be a lot of good music theory, songwriting, and just good times coming our way. So thanks for being on. That was pretty much the gist of it. And I hope you have a great rest of your January 1st. And we will be talking very soon. And again, check out the behind the scenes 3 in the library. It's up now. Fun to walk through the process of the lesson creation process. So have a great one. February 29th is augmented. I love it. I love it. I think this is a leap year, right? So there's all sorts of harmonic resonance going on with that. So have a good one, and we will be talking very soon. See you guys.